It's time to give our player some inventory. Right now he has a blaster that's permanently equipped, and I'd like to be able to give my player multiple different items. Maybe swap out weapons or give them items that they can pick up in a level and use throughout that level. And I want to start with two different item types. One that we can have across multiple levels that kind of persists with us, and one that's just for a specific level, like a key to a specific lock on the level that we have to grab and find to go open something or trigger some other action. Let's start by creating a key so we have two different items, and then we'll figure out how we can build this into an inventory system for our player so they can pick up multiple things and then switch between them. We're going to begin by going into the items folder of art and grabbing one of the keys. I'm going to take the yellow key and drag it out here so that it's just off to the side of the player so that I can pick it up. I think I'll zero out the X position, just go to a flat 0 and do a negative 3.5 on my Y so that it's just evenly aligned with my cubes. Now I'm going to add a collider to it. I'll go with a circle collider 2D, and this is going to be so that I can pick the key up. When I touch the collider, I want to pick up my key. I'm going to shrink the collider size down because you can see it's a little bit bigger than the key, maybe to about half of the 0.5 and about a 0.25. I think that's close enough. Maybe a 0.3 would be a little bit better actually. There we go. That covers the edge of the key. Should be able to pick it up pretty easily. So now I've got a key with a collider on it, and I need a script to be able to pick this thing up. So I'm going to go into my scripts folder. Actually, first I'm going to grab my duck behavior and drag that into my scripts folder. Since it's a script and it kind of belongs in there. Then we'll go into the folder and I'll right click and choose create. And we'll pick C# script. And we're going to call this key with a capital K. So K-E-Y. And then we'll open that script up in Visual Studio. Get our code editor up here. Now in our key script, I want to keep it pretty simple. I want our key to just be able to lock and unlock things, but I also want my key to be able to be picked up by the player. So I'm going to start with a simple on trigger enter 2D. We'll delete out the start and update and just do an on trigger enter 2D, let it auto complete. And first thing I'll do is check to see if it was a player that touched us. So just check against the tag for now. We'll say if collision.compare tag. And we'll check against that player tag that we have assigned to our player. If we have a player that we've touched, then all we're going to do is say that our transform.parent or set parent to set our parent because we want our parent to be this other object or the player that we touched. So there we go. We can let it auto complete and have it give us the collision.transform. I'm going to save. We'll go back into Unity. We'll make sure that this object actually has our collider set as a trigger and that when we have the script on there. And then we're going to go pick the key up and see what it does. So we go over here. Oh, is triggers not checked. So we'll make sure that gets checked. And then let's go add the key script. Now we'll press play, and I should be able to walk over there, pick up a key, and have it just kind of be bound to my object. Not really bound, but parented to my object. So I run over, there we go. Now I've got a key that kind of follows along and gets dragged behind me. That's neat. No, not exactly what I want. I kind of want the key to be in my player's hand instead though. So let's start by making a little change so that we can drag or drop the key right up to where this player's hand is. And in fact, let's take a look at it while we're playing. I'm going to go through and click and find the object that I've got here. So it looks like there's a front object. We've got the gun right here, which is probably where I want this thing. So while we're playing, I'm actually just going to take my key. Let's see if I can find it and drag it to be a child of the gun for now. I'll reset the position. 0, 0. And yeah, that looks like it's probably about right. Let's change the sprite renderer and adjust the sorting layer to be on props so that it shows in front of our player. And yeah, that's about what I'm thinking right there. That key sitting right in front of the player. So what we're going to do is add a new point now so that we can drop this key onto where the gun is without it being directly on the gun. So we'll stop playing, go to the gun, right click, and we're going to choose create empty. It's going to give us another game object that's a child of the gun. I'm going to call this item point. Oh, let's move the mouse off of there and then drag it out so that it's not a child of the gun anymore. Now I'll go to my player and apply my overrides. So just hit apply all to add that item point to my prefab. Next, I need to find a way to assign this item point. And to do that, well, we'll just add a field in our player like we have for our blaster and our fire point. So we'll go to the player. And we're going to add a new field here. I'm going to make this one public for now. Make a public transform, and we're going to call this item point. We're going to leave it just as a public field because in just a moment we're going to move it out of here and completely change it. So for now, we're going to leave it as a public field that we can assign or use and read from in our key method. So instead of assigning it to or setting the parent to our collisions transform, we're going to get the player object and then assign it to the item point instead. So instead of checking the tag now, we're going to look for a player. So we'll say var player equals collision dot get component type player. And then we'll say if the player is not equal to null, then we'll transform dot set parent and we'll set it to the player's item point. We'll add the semicolon there, delete outlines 14 and 15. We no longer need that code. And then we'll jump back into Unity and we should see the key getting dropped onto the hand and in the correct point, which is also going to give us the nice side effect of when we turn around and face the opposite direction, it's now rotated and snapped over to the correct side. Let's see if that's the case though. So we come over here, we grab the key. Oh, I can't grab my key. Oh, and that's because my point isn't assigned. It's because the item point on my player is not assigned. So if I take the item point here, drag it over. Now I'll run over and grab it again, and you can see that my key is assigning itself to the correct child or the correct parent. It's now underneath the item point, but my position's not getting zeroed out. So I've still got an offset here. If I zero this position out, you see that it goes to the correct place. So I need to make 2 more little changes. Let's stop playing and make those changes now. First change is we got to go to the player and reassign that item point while we're not in play mode. Apply our changes to our prefab so that that gets saved and works in all of our levels. Next, we're going to go into the key. And in the part where we set the parent, right after we set the parent, let's also set our local position to 0. So we'll do it to vector3.0 and we'll save. Now that should reset our key so that our key is kind of snapped directly to our hand. And before we finish, let's make the third change that I forgot to mention, which is that we need to make sure that our key is on the correct sprite layer. So we're going to go to the sorting layer and we're going to change this to be props instead of default so that it shows up in front of our player. Now I'll save my scene, press play, and let's run over, grab our key, see if it snaps to our hand, and we can move it back and forth and maybe start using it to open some locks. There we go. I've got a key in my hand and it's looking pretty good. I can still shoot. Weapon still works. There's nothing stopping that right now, but I've got a key and I can maybe start bouncing this around and using it on something. So let's stop playing. Go into Plastic, make sure that we've saved everything, save the project as well, and then so that we added the key script and check in.